Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll get started in just a minute. Good morning, everyone, and thank you again for joining us today for our webinar. Family engagement is key. My name is Carolyn Crelot. I'm the Director of Dual Language Learner Programs for Early Edge California, and we're very excited to partner with Peach to be able to provide you with relevant family engagement tools and resources as part of the Multilingual Learning Toolkit. And today kicks off our three-part webinar series for higher education faculty members and teacher educators. And as you'll see, this will be an interactive webinar that prompts you to engage via chat and a few other collaborative tools. And also Early Edge will be sending a follow-up email with a certificate of attendance, as well as links to the recording and any other materials so that you can access them after the webinar. And please feel free to share those resources with your colleagues. So I would now like to introduce to you our presenters today. We have with us Ana Arambula-Gonzalez, Adjunct Professor at Fresno City College, and Dr. Giselle Navarro-Cruz, Associate Professor of Early Childhood Studies at California State Polytechnic University, Pomona. So Ana and Giselle, I'll now turn it over to you.
Thank you, Carolyn, for the nice introduction, and thank you all for being here with us today. What an honor and great opportunity to share with you such important information and resources to improve our practices in preparing our wonderful students and future educators. Today, we will be discussing what research says about family engagement, what is family engagement, and why family engagement is so important. Giselle and I will be sharing with you some assignment examples that you can use in your courses around family engagement. But first, let's begin with a fun and interactive activity. Just like in our courses, it is always fun to start off doing something exciting. Using one word, please describe family engagement. You can scan the QR code or click on the link that Trish put in the chat. This will take you directly to our Jamboard. Now, to add your word, you can click on the pen that you can see is circled and begin writing, or you can click on the text box to add your text. So if hopefully everyone is able to access the Jamboard so that we can begin seeing your one word that describes family engagement. Partnership. So I see some of you are typing it in the chat. Partnership. Let's see our Jamboard. Maybe we, oh, there it goes. So together, connections, intentional. So connections is a word that is coming up quite often. Relationships, belonging, intentional, richness, mutual respect, inclusive. Thank you. And as we continue on our morning together, feel free to keep adding there, or if it's easier to add in the chat, please do so. We want this session to be as interactive as possible. So please don't close the link just yet. Now that you have described one word for family engagement, I would like you to describe and use one word for parent involvement. And so on top of the Jamboard, you will see where it has the arrow to the right. So if you click on next, it will take you directly to our second page where it says, please describe parent involvement in one word. And I see some of you using the chat. So if that's easier for you, that's absolutely fine. So trust, partnerships, supportive, quality time. Authentic, empowering, partnerships. So as we move on during our time together, if there's another word that comes up and you want to add it, please feel free to do so. We are a learning community and we are here to learn from one another and all of the amazing things that you are doing. And I see someone put in the chat, beneficial, absolutely. So thank you for your participation. Let's now move on to what research says about family engagement. Research says that the most accurate predictor of a student's achievement in school is not income or social status, but to the extent to which the student's family is able to, one, create a home environment that encourages learning, express high but not unrealistic expectations for children's achievement and future careers, and lastly, become involved in their children's education at school and in the community. This is a powerful statement. And for me, it really hit home. I'm a first-generation college student. Both of my parents worked in the fields all of their life. And I too had the opportunity to work with my mother every summer during my 4 years in high school. I say it was an opportunity because this experience shaped me to be the person that I am. My parents only spoke Spanish. However, my mother always made sure that my siblings and I did our homework. Although she couldn't help us, she taught us to help one another. She made sure we had the essential materials needed at school and at home. She joined parent meetings, participated in field trips when she could, and most importantly, instilled in us the importance of having an education. I believe that all families want the best for their children, and most parents feel that because they themselves did not obtain a higher education, they are not able to help their children in their education. The reality is that when families become involved in their child's education and at school, they set a path for success in school and in life. Now at this moment, I would like for you to share in the chat some memories that you have of your parents being involved in your education. So using the chat, what are some memories that you have of your parents or guardians or family members being part? So I see back to school night events, parent conferences, very high expectations. They had high expectations for you. Homework, volunteering in the classroom. So I see a response where my mother worked at a school and was a mute aide. So spelling bee, homework, dance events, math nights, relationships with teachers. That is so powerful. And thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your memories. And I feel like most parents have high expectations for their children. I see that coming up a lot in the chat. So thank you so much. So now this is a quote from the Office of Head Start. Family engagement refers to ongoing, goal-directed relationships that are between staff and families. Now, these relationships need to be mutual, culturally responsive, and support what is best for children and families individually and collectively. So staff and families share the responsibility for the learning and development of children, the progress towards outcomes for children and families, and for parent involvement in the program. Parent involvement is part of this larger construct of family engagement. This means that parent involvement is a key component of family engagement. Using the chat, type 1 or 2 takeaways from this quote. What are some takeaways from this quote? I will goal-directed relationships. Thank you. Mutual respect, relationships. Absolutely. What is best for children and families? That ongoing collaboration, relationships. Thank you so much. So when relationships are mutual, as many of you have stated in the chat, between staff and families, the outcomes are amazing. This is very much true. Forming a two-way relationship establishes positive communication and engagement that is based on mutual trust, acceptance, and respect. Isn't this powerful? It's amazing. Now, has anyone seen this handout before? So using the chat, just if you can please type yes or no. Yes, yes, no. Okay, so some yes, some mostly no. Okay, so thank you so much. So this handout was developed by the National Center for Parent, Family, and Community Engagement. It describes the difference between parent involvement and family engagement. And this resource can be found on the Multilingual Learning Toolkit website. Now, let me share some of the details of the information included in this handout. You may be wondering, isn't parent involvement and family engagement the same thing? They sound similar, but they are slightly different. Parent involvement occurs when parents participate in activities and take advantage of opportunities at their child's early care and learning setting. This usually means that parents attend meetings or special events a program offers. Parent involvement may also include an exchange of information about the child and what happens at home. For example, these are your back to school night events, parent workshops, parent conferences, and school performances. And now family engagement happens when early childhood professionals and families engage in an interactive process of relationship building. The process is mutual, respectful, and responsive to a family's language and culture. Meaningful relationship building is ongoing and requires time and attention. This is when the parent and educators have language exchanges about their child on a regular basis. The educator takes the time to get to know more about the child and family's languages, their culture, traditions, beliefs, talents, and skills. Family engagement is not an event. It's an ongoing process that requires these events to happen throughout the year. When you have parent involvement and family engagement, you're providing a pathway of opportunities for the family and child. This is what we want to strive for. Having both components is a recipe for student success. I will now share 4 different examples of assignments that can be created using this handout. All of the examples that Giselle and I will be sharing with you can be used for online or in-person teaching. Now, before I begin sharing examples of assignments, I would like to ask you to please scan or open the link that Trish dropped in the chat. We have created a Padlet board so that you can add any assignment examples that you have probably created with some of the resources that we will be sharing with you today, or provide additional ideas on how the resources that we are sharing with you today can be used to create different assignment examples. And after the webinar, you can still add your ideas to this Padlet. We will have it available for the duration of the 3 webinars. Now, let's begin with the first assignment. So this is the Padlet that Trish is sharing with you all, where you can access using the link or the QR code if you were able to scan it. But to add your questions or suggestions, you just click on the plus sign and you will immediately be able to start typing there, where it says write something beautiful. So you can just type there and then you post it and everyone will be able to see your responses. So now we will go back to our PowerPoint, where I will be sharing with you some examples of assignments that can be used using the handout that I just shared with you. The first assignment example is to create a discussion board, and this can be done using the online platform that your institution uses. It can be used again if you're teaching in person or online. So begin by asking the students to describe in their own words what parent involvement and family engagement means to them. The response to this question requires two separate responses, one for parent involvement and one for family engagement. Once the students have posted their responses, ask students to respond to two other students in a way that continues the conversation. After the students have posted their response, they've responded to two other students, ask students to read the handout, Parent Involvement and Family Engagement. Have them compare their responses to their initial post. The purpose of this is for students to reflect on their responses and compare that to what they read. And lastly, ask students to post a sentence that stood out to them and explain why they selected that specific question. And this is an example of how this handout can be used as a discussion board assignment option. The second assignment example is called Childhood Memories. For this assignment, have students do the following. Start off by having them read the Parent Involvement and Family Engagement handout. Ask students to read it and share two memories they have of their families being involved in their education. Ask them to share what they enjoyed the most about having their family come to their classroom. If they have no memories, or their parents for some reason or another were not able to participate, have students share how they hope to engage in their child's classroom presently or in the future. For this assignment, I would recommend having students complete the assignment on a Word document and upload it and attach it to the assignment that you have created. The third example is a reading reflection. Have students, again, read the handout and have students reflect on first, what they are currently doing in their classroom to enhance parent involvement and family engagement to build partnerships with families. Secondly, what they like to begin doing in their classroom to enhance parent involvement and family engagement. For this reading reflection assignment, again, I would have students complete it on a Word document and just attach it. And the whole idea is for them to really begin to think about what this may look like in their classroom. The last assignment example is an example that requires more detailed information, where students will be able to demonstrate their understanding of these two important components. Students will have the opportunity to apply what they have learned by creating a PowerPoint presentation to share with the class. And again, this assignment can be done if you're teaching in person or virtually. If you're teaching an asynchronous course, you can ask students to record their presentations and share them with you, but then also ask students if they are okay with you sharing their recordings with other students. And you can do this, and they can do this by you creating a discussion board that is worth 0 points, and they can themselves upload the video there so that other students can get other ideas on activities that they can do to enhance family engagement in their classrooms. So the instructions for this assignment would be to have the students read the handout, create a 15-minute PowerPoint presentation that will be shared during class, again, if you're teaching in person or virtual. The presentation must have 10 slides, and it also must describe what parent involvement and family engagement are, and include 2 family engagement activities. So students will describe these 2 activities during the presentation using visuals, props, or other materials needed to ensure a successful presentation for families. The content on the presentation should include information from the handout and 3 other outside sources. And all as best practice, always have students cite those additional resources that they used. And by the end of the presentation, regardless of what platform you are using to teach or give this assignment, students will walk away with many different family engagement activities that they can implement in their classroom. And this assignment is a great opportunity for students to practice inviting families into their classroom, but most importantly, to begin to be creative in ways that families can still be involved even when they can't come into the classroom. I have shared several ideas on how this handout can be used in your courses. I would like to hear from you. So what are some ways that you can use this resource? And please share some examples of how you can use this resource on the Padlet that was just shared with you. So if we could share the Padlet, and then I see someone has already started, so thank you. So invite parents to share a folktale from their cultural background and the languages of their choice. Absolutely. So as we continue on our time together this morning, I encourage you to please just continue sharing your ideas. This is a great idea. So thank you for the person who added it there. So let's move on to some more assignment ideas using resources on the Multilingual Learning Toolkit. I will now share with you 2 examples of assignments that can be created using the strategies in action that can be found on the Multilingual Learning Toolkit website. These strategies in action are examples of vignettes that can be used as assignments in your class. And each vignette has 3 reflection questions at the end. This is something that I myself as a professor appreciate because I don't have to put together reflection questions. They're already there and ready to be used. For example, this vignette that you see here is geared towards teachers working in pre-K and TK classrooms. This vignette can be used if you're teaching in person or virtually. So one way that you can use this as for an assignment is to create a discussion board assignment, provide students with the link to the vignette, have the students read the vignette and respond to the 3 reflection questions that are already on there. And after they have responded to the reflection questions and the discussion board, have students reply to 2 other students in a way that continues the conversation. And remind students to always be respectful to what other students have posted, as their experiences and ideas may be slightly different. And I encourage you to also participate in the discussion board and post your responses to the prompt questions. I have found it that students tend to engage more in the discussion board assignments when I have participated and in the discussions, but also have posted my responses to the prompt questions. And these questions reflect, the questions in this vignette reflect beautifully with the handout that I just shared with you on parent involvement and family engagement. Now let's see another example of strategies in action. So this vignette is geared for teachers who teach kindergarten and 1st grade. And again, it can be found on the Multilingual Learning Toolkit website. This particular vignette is about Mr. Cohen, a kindergarten teacher. In his class, the families come together once a month to read books to children in his class in the languages of the children. And for the next half hour, the classroom is abuzz as books are being read in 3 different languages. Children pay close attention to the parents to see the pictures and breathe in the warmth of having family in the classroom. They are excitedly engaged in responding to the prompts, predicting what will happen next, and reacting to the flights and victories of the characters in the story. They're learning to enjoy time spent with books. So this is just a quick review of what this vignette is about. But for example, you can use this vignette if you're teaching in person. So have students read first the setting and the lesson and provide them with the link, or you can have it displayed on your whiteboard. Depending on what platform you are using, you can have it displayed and have them read the vignette there along with the reflection questions. Have students respond to the reflection questions. After they have responded to their questions individually, have them get with an ALBO partner or another student, maybe in groups of 2 and 3, and have them just share their responses to the reflection questions for about 10 minutes. And after the 10 minutes are up, ask each group to share out loud the reflections. And this is a great way to engage students to collaborate and talk to one another instead of us just lecturing at them. Now, another example of how you can use this vignette is for virtual teaching. So again, you would provide the students with the link to the vignette, have them read it, respond to the 3 reflection questions. And after they have responded to those questions, maybe you give them, I recommend 15 minutes, and you create breakout rooms. You put them in breakout rooms for 10 minutes. Once the 10 minutes are up, bring them all back together and invite each breakout room to share their reflections. So I have provided you with 2 different examples on how this vignette can be used. I highly recommend that you visit the Multilingual Learning Toolkit website for more examples of vignettes. They are a great way to provide students with different scenarios, especially if they can't be in the classroom. If there are any other ideas on how this vignette can be used as an assignment, please share it in the Padlet that we just shared with you. Now, I will pass it over to my colleague and friend, Giselle, who will be sharing some examples of assignments that she has used in her courses.
Gracias, Ana. Thank you. You have shared so many examples of assignment faculty can incorporate in their courses on family engagement and involvement. In order to build relationships of trust, where families feel comfortable to be involved and engage in their children's classroom, teachers must value families' funds of knowledge. Funds of knowledge is an asset-based approach that values the skills, resources, knowledge, practice, educational ideologies, and past and present experience of every individual. It is defined as historically accumulated and culturally developed bodies of knowledge and skills essential for household or individual functioning and well-being. Pretty much, funds of knowledge is all the past and present information each one of us has accumulated that helps us in our everyday life. We each have funds of knowledge, but it's not always valued. Luis Moll founded this term as he observed Latin American children's knowledge not valued in the classrooms. For example, a child who helps his mother make and sell tamales has to learn to cook, measure, and calculate expenses. These are transferable skills that can be used in the classroom, but are often neglected. A funds of knowledge approach also takes individuals' interests and uses that information to better engage students. For example, my husband is a 7th grade history teacher, and he knows his students are into sports. Sport knowledge is part of their funds of knowledge. He uses sports to describe historical events. In my research, I have looked at mothers' funds of knowledge to explore the type of care they want for their children. My study highlights the importance of valuing families' diverse childcare choices that derive from their past and present experience. That is, their funds of knowledge. I like using a funds of knowledge framework because it helps me value everyone for who they are. Growing up, I personally felt as if my family and my own funds of knowledge was not valued. For example, I remember in elementary when a teaching assistant said that I need to speak English and learn to read the books they had. I was not interested in the books that are there, but if they had a book that represented me, then perhaps I would have been more inclined to read. I really struggled reading, and at home, I did not have any books, and going to the library was at least an hour walk one way, which was not realistic. I would have been amazing to have a teacher understand why I struggled with reading and how to catch my interest in reading. Now we teach about valuing children and families' funds of knowledge, as we know this is important to build relationships of trust and encourage engagement and involvement. So valuing everyone's funds of knowledge is important. But in order for students to understand the importance of valuing others' funds of knowledge, including families' funds of knowledge, they have to see it in action. One way is to start the course by getting to know your students. One activity I have done with my students is called My Name, Mi Nombre. This activity can be found on the Multilingual Learning Toolkit. My Name, Mi Nombre is a great activity to do in the class with your students as a take home assignment or in the classroom with families. I often use this activity in class as an icebreaker on the first day of class. It allows me to learn students' names and get to know students a little more. I have brought loose parts in the classroom for students to use them as they create their name and share what it means to them. But I have also just had a conversation about their name. For some students, this activity may be challenging, as it may be that the first time they delve deep into what their name means. Some may not know as they were adopted or no longer have family to ask. So I asked them to think of what it means to them now. This activity can also be an assignment. It allows students to ask family members about the meaning behind their name or research what it means and why that name was given to them. They can ask family members and also do research online. This is also an activity that can be assigned to your students to do in their own classroom with their families. That is if they are in a classroom already. For example, maybe the educators schedule a family night out where all families are invited to join, and they create a poster about their child's name and they share with families. The photo on the slide is an example of a family event night. The families came to the event and created their posters about their child's name, and the educators posted it in the classroom. This is a great way to involve and engage families. They came to the classroom, did the activity, and now when they pick up their child from the classroom, it gives them the opportunity to engage with their child in dialogue about the photos and written print. If having a family night event is not possible, then it can be a letter that families write to their children about their name, and they get it mailed into their classroom cubbies. This activity informs children that they are important and that their name is important. So now we want to hear from you. Using the chat, please share the meaning of your name. You may not know why it was given to you or what it means, but you may know what your name means to you. I also encourage you to ask family members and do some research after the meeting to explore your name a bit more. As we wait for you to write in the chat, I will share that when I asked my mother about my name, she shared that my older sister chose my name. It was the name of one of her friends. I then did some research and found that my name has French origins. I also found that Giselle means one who offers a pledge. I love my name. I also like my nickname. So my family calls me Big G. I have two daughters whose names start with a G. They call them Little G and Baby G. And that always makes me happy to hear Big G, Little G. So in the chat, I want to share some of what you have been saying. So during my birth, my name was one of the most popular. My name is Greek and in background meaning honeybee. Ooh, Melissa. I love to hear what all these names mean. When I just gave birth to my daughter 3 months ago, and learning about names and the meaning behind them has become such a big interest of mine. Martha says, my name was after my grandmother, Jocelyn. My mom shared, it moves fast. She likes the name Jocelyn from a news reporter, and that's where my name came from. I love it. Okay, we'll do one more. Mabel says, I just know that name means lovable. I just lost it too. Let's see. I asked my mom why she named me Mabel. She said she heard it in a novela. We all love our novelas, right? When I was younger, I always got made fun of. But as I got older, I grew fond of it, and it's unique. And while I love it, it's me. I'm so glad. Thank you all so much for sharing. I would love to hear all these little stories. So in a bit, maybe after I'll see what everybody has shared about their names. But it also helps you connect with others when you hear about their name and what it means and where they got it. It helps you connect. So thank you so much all for sharing. Okay. So I do not only get to know my students at the beginning of class, but throughout the course. Throughout my course, I'm always asking students about their funds of knowledge so that they reflect on who they are and why it is important that others acknowledge this. In having them self-reflect on their own funds of knowledge, they are then able to understand why it is important to value others' funds of knowledge. I use the funds of knowledge framework when designing assignments. So I want to share an assignment that you can use in a practicum course or any other course that requires students to reflect on their own funds of knowledge and family's funds of knowledge. So at the start of the class, I have students reflect on their past. How were their families welcomed into the classroom when they were in school? Did their family feel welcomed? If so, how? If not, how could educators better welcome their family? So I give students an example of how when I had my son in preschool, I did not feel welcomed. I was not allowed to visit the classroom, and my son no longer wanted to speak Spanish because he did not see his language reflected in the classroom. I wish his language and culture were visible so that he would be more proud of speaking Spanish. That would have made me feel more welcomed and involved in the classroom and engaged as well. So that's on their past. Then when students start developing a lesson plan in the practicum, have students reflect on the present. How may they get to know the families at their site? And how may they involve and engage families? I inform students about the importance of getting to know families. Access to families varies in every practicum, so I tell students to work with what is allowed in their practicum site. One way that students involve families in my course is by having them share a documentation panel with families about the activities they conducted or the lesson plan they conducted with the children. Sharing information with families is very valuable. Some students ask the mentor teacher to share information with families using class apps like Class Dojo, which I think is amazing. So we went from the past to the present, now to the future. When students are at the end of practicum, I ask them to reflect on the future. I ask them to think of when they are teachers, how may they get to know about the children and their families? So you can share with students 2 tools that are on the Multilingual Toolkit that can help them get to know families when they are teachers in the classroom. They may even want to share these with their mentor teachers. So the first is a family questionnaire form that families can take home and fill out and then share with the teacher. Remember to translate this form for families who speak a different language. There's a Spanish version online, but you can use Google Translate or others, or ask others to help you translate for other languages represented in your early learning program. The second is a family interview. Let's take a brief look at this family interview. This is an interview with in Spanish with closed captioning in English. I wanted you to see how important it is to have the interview in the family's home language. If you do not know the family's home language, you can use Google Translate or ask someone you know that speaks the language. Okay, let's watch the first 2 minutes.
Otra pregunta es como para las familias donde se habla otro lenguaje aparte del inglés en el hogar. ¿Qué tan importante es para usted que su hijo continúe hablando y aprendiendo el lenguaje que se habla en su casa?
Pues lo más importante para nosotros también es aquí hablando el español.
Muy bien.
No sabemos hablar inglés tampoco. Nosotros que más quisiéramos hablarle el inglés, pero no sabemos.
No, pero está bien, poquito a poquito. Cuando se empieza a hablar,
Sí.
es poco a poco para poder ganar el vocabulario. Y eso le va a ayudar
Sí.
a expanderlo más.
Ujú.
Muy bien. Entonces, ¿qué talentos especiales o intereses tiene Allison?
Pues ella ya quiere ir a la escuelita y me dice que cuándo va a ir porque quiere ver sus amiguitos y quiere aprender más. Y se pone a colorear ahí.
Ah, le encanta colorear.
Sí, le encanta.
Qué bueno,
Y
qué bueno.
se pone a dibujar ahí, pero pues con esta pandemia que ya está, pues ya no se puede.
No, pero poquito a poquito hay que ser positivos y pronto estaremos trabajando con ella otra vez.
Sí.
¿Tiene
Primeramente Dios.
Sí, eso sí. ¿Tiene usted y su niño historias, libros, canciones favoritas que disfruten juntas?
Pues solo lo ponemos en la tableta, pues, porque no hemos comprado como muchos libros.
So you can watch the rest of it on the Multilingual Learning Toolkit. But I love what technology has given us, that we can see families virtually, right? I hope that you were able to notice how the teacher really wants to get to know more about the family and the child's interests. I remind students that involving and engaging family is not only at the start and end of the school year, but throughout the year. Building connections with families throughout the year is important. So not only do they get to know them in the beginning, but they get to involve and engage with families throughout. Having students reflect is a key assignment in all of my courses. In particular, having them reflect on families' funds of knowledge and the value families bring into the classroom is important to develop a relationships of trust. I provide research and personal examples of what it looks like to value families and the children's funds of knowledge. So now that I've shared some examples, I want to send it off to Ana again.
Thank you, Giselle, for sharing these assignments with us and your personal stories as well. Now we're going to talk about language. So far, we've talked about language being part of one's funds of knowledge and the importance of valuing children's and families' home language. Here's what we know. Language is part of a student's funds of knowledge, and it is crucial to value students and families' home language. Now, how do we promote and support home language use? The message you can give to your students is to give to their parents is to use the home language as early as possible and as often as possible. Encourage families to use their language with children from birth. The easiest, most important thing is for family members to use their home language daily. Many families worry that using their home language will confuse their children or make it more difficult for them to learn English. You must help parents understand that children can learn more than one language at the same time. In fact, children will have an easier time learning English if they have a strong foundation in their first language. Secondly, telling stories and singing songs. All families have a rich heritage to pass on to their children. And an excellent way to engage children with this heritage is by telling stories and singing fun songs. You should encourage families to share these with their children and have fun doing it. Also, share books and stories. Many families worry that reading and telling stories in their home language will make it harder for their children to read in English, but the opposite is true. Encourage families to read and tell stories in their home language. Explain that telling stories and reading in their home language teaches children words and ideas they will easily transfer into English. And in other words, reinforce that using home language positively impacts children's ability to learn English. Also, encourage families to talk about their traditions and culture. This contributes to language development and creates a sense of pride and belonging. Provide plenty of opportunities for families to visit the classroom and talk about their languages, their traditions, their culture, their heritage, and ask them to share family stories and songs with you. Now, lastly, celebrate students' culture and language. Show that you value home languages in your classroom by having environmental print in the languages of the children and having books available in all of the languages of the families. A great approach is to suggest checking out books that are wordless in children's home language in the library. The library is a great resource for bilingual books. Most importantly, we must tell families, don't forget that you are key to maintaining your home language. This is a message that you would want to give to your students. So now, moving forward, we will now watch a video from Teaching from the Beginning, where you will see a mother and her child read a book in Spanish.
Porque tenía miedo así grande. Coyote dice. Era un coyote muy malo. hicieron su casa todavía más grande. Los conejos, todos le ayudaban. Los osos. ¿De pluma?
Sí,
Sí.
porque esa no son de la...
Ajá, porque no estaba fuerte esa.
Pero si todas fueran como esta, no la podían soplar.
No le podía soplar.
Reading every day at home with them somehow.
Les lee todos los días.
Todos los días en la noche se le lee un libro antes de dormirse. Hasta aparte todos los martes los llevo a la librería, hora y media, y ahí les leo. Este martes pasado les leí, son 7 libros. So, ya después que les leo, incluso el martes pasado que fuimos a la librería, 3 niños que traía una señora. Cuando yo estaba bien emocionada leyéndole el libro, y cuando me di cuenta, los niños estaban atrás de mis hijos, escuchando también, escuchando la lectura, e incluso la señora parada por un lado con los brazos cruzados, que yo les estaba leyendo, pero yo no me di cuenta, porque yo estaba emocionada leyéndoles a ellos. Así que, y seguido me suele pasar eso los martes que voy y les leo.
Hoy estaba caminando. Estaba durmiendo, estaba dormido, estaba dormido, estaba dormido.
Ajá, todo estaba dormido.
Sirviendo de comer,
¿Y qué estaba sirviendo?
cornflakes.
What a beautiful video. And the takeaway from this video is that these parents are involved with their child at home reading storybooks. And the second child whom you've seen reading with the parent, she was leading the reading and the parent was asking questions. This is an example of family engagement. This is what we want for all children and families. We want families to read and dialogue with their children in their home language. Now we will watch another short video. In this video, you will observe a great activity where parents write a letter to their child. We know that sometimes it's hard for families to volunteer in the classroom. It can be due to work schedules, fingerprinting costs, the whole process in general, or a current situation, or other life events. So let's watch this quick video.
She was in the front of the I was spinning the bus and she was behind.
Oh yeah.
Okay, sort this, put it in there. We'll read them later because they're
Okay.
for you.
What about
That probably is someone from the morning class. That is
who's this?
from right now. Oh, Samantha.
Samantha.
Daniel. Not, he's asking
M.A.
you do. You know what I should do here? I think that was it from this morning because the parents wrote them. The parents who came in to write them wrote them.
Why did they wrote them?
Your moms and dads wrote them. I
Why
did not
the
write
road?
them.
I got
Oh,
nothing.
why? Because they
Why
wanted to say something to you. Should we find out what they wanted to say?
Yeah,
Okay, why don't you get your letter if you can find
I
it?
can't.
Let's find out what they wanted to say to you today. All right.
What?
Can you hold this, Amanda Javier?
Yeah.
Okay, hold yours a second.
Mhm.
And you had written her a letter too. Huh? Remember that?
Okay. What is that?
All right. Querido hijo, solo te escribo para decirle cuánto te extraño cuando estoy trabajando.
What is that?
Ajá, that part. Te amo, tu mamá.
Gabby.
Hasta
Hey, Gabby.
pronto.
We do it already. Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
What is that?
Nice, we're gonna
Mine.
save it. Yeah.
So doing activities like the one we just seen in this video provides parents with the opportunity to still be engaged in their child's classroom. And you noticed what pride in these children's faces when the teacher said to them that their parents had wrote a letter for them and she begins reading it. So this again is a great opportunity for parents to support their children even when they cannot be in the classroom. So as we end our time together this morning, let's review briefly what parent involvement is and what family engagement looks like in the school and home setting. So parent involvement occurs when parents participate in activities and take advantage of opportunities in their child's early care and learning setting. These again are your back to school night events, your parent conferences, parent workshops, and school performances. And family engagement happens when the parent and educator have language exchanges about their child regularly, and the educator takes the time to learn more about the child and family's languages, their culture, traditions, beliefs, and talents. Remember that family engagement is not an event. It's an ongoing process that should happen throughout the year. Thank you, Giselle. This has been inspiring and impactful. We hope that you can use these assignment examples that Giselle and I shared with you. We all have learned from you all as you shared your rich and powerful knowledge and experiences in the chat, in the Jamboard, in the Padlet. I thank you all and wish everyone a wonderful week. I will now pass it on to Carolyn, who will be addressing the questions you entered in the chat.
Thank you so much, Anna and Giselle. So we now have a few minutes for questions. So please feel free to add in any questions either in the Q&A or chat.
So I see a question, Carolyn, in the chat and the Q&A.
Yes.
Regarding the closed caption.
Yes, so many of the videos most of the videos on the website are linked directly to they're not hosted directly on our website, so we're not the owners of the content. So they would need to be closed captioned through the host source. Many of them actually live on YouTube, and on YouTube there is the closed captioning feature that you can turn on, and actually in different languages as well. So that's an option, but we can certainly continue to look into that with our partners that host some of the videos. Please feel free to add in more questions that you have about any of the resources and strategies that Anna and Giselle have shared with us. And as we're waiting for some more questions to come in, I also wanted to share that Early Edge is getting ready. We're working on additional resources for the website that we'll be sharing out at the end of August. And some of those resources include lesson plans for higher ed faculty and teacher educators on the different topics found in the toolkit, including family engagement. So really giving kind of more structure and ideas for activities and your lessons with your students. So we'll be sharing those. So please do sign up for updates so that you can receive updates about the toolkit and about new resources as they are available. And yes, this session is recorded, and we'll be sending a follow-up email to everyone who registered with the recording, as well as all of the resources that you heard about today.
There is a question in the chat about if we can put the code. I believe it's the QR code for the Padlet. We can just drop the link in the chat, or maybe just share the screen so the person can download it.
Okay. Trish will do that. And yes, you guys will get a certificate for participating in this session. So please continue to add in additional questions, but I just also wanted to just say thank you again to Anna and Giselle for sharing these wonderful resources and strategies. And if you could all please take just a couple of minutes to complete our short evaluation survey. that we'll be putting into the chat. And then here is Anna's email address. So please feel free to reach out. And if you have any questions about the toolkit, please reach out to Trish Morrison from our team. And then, just hope you'll join us for the next session, which will be on oral language development. And that one is scheduled for July 13th. And please continue to spread the word about these webinars and these resources. And again, we'll be sharing an email for you with to all of you with all of the resources, as well as the certificate and the recording. And so thank you once again, and hope you have a wonderful day.